Hello friends, welcome to a new episode of Drishti IAS Editorial Analysis. In this editorial analysis, we do three things. First of all, we link the editorial to the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand the key points of the editorial. And thirdly, if any key concepts have come in the editorial and are important from exam point of view, we also discuss them. So let us begin today's editorial analysis.
Dear viewer, this video is available in Hindi as well. If you wish to watch it, please visit our Hindi YouTube channel, Drishti IAS. For your convenience, the link for this video in Hindi has been provided in the description below.
We have taken today's editorial from the Hindustan Times and it has come on 5th of August. The title of the editorial is In Kashmir, Integrate Kashmiris, and it says, the national project is complete, but the democratic project now needs work. Now let us look at its linkage with the syllabus. So we find that it links directly with GS paper 2, where we have constitution as one of the important areas of the syllabus. Because in this editorial, we will be mainly discussing the revocation of Article 370 and its impact on the special status enjoyed by Jammu and Kashmir, which has now been bifurcated into two union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and of Ladakh. So after establishing the linkage with the syllabus, now let us look at its key points. So before moving on to the key points of the editorial, let us understand what the issue is all about. So here we can see the new map of the UTs of J&K and Ladakh. So on 5th August 2019, the central government revoked the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, which it enjoyed under Article 370. The state of Jammu and Kashmir was bifurcated into two new union territories, one of Ladakh and the other of Jammu and Kashmir. The UT of Ladakh is not having a legislative assembly, while the UT of Jammu and Kashmir is having a legislative assembly. Another important thing to note here is that in the UT of Ladakh, there are only two districts of Leh and Kargil. And in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, till 2019, there were 28 districts. So Jammu and Kashmir may become a state again, but it seems that there cannot be any going back on the status of Article 370. No political party in India would be able to revive Article 370, as its removal has received widespread support from all parts of India. There have been some protests, but they have been more localized and concentrated mainly in the Kashmir Valley. Even in Jammu, this move has received widespread support. And the people of Ladakh were always wanting a separate union territory for their development. Now this Jammu and Kashmir issue, this is a 7-decade-old problem. And it started from the time India gained its independence in 1947. And after revoking the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, the central government has imprisoned a number of political leaders and hundreds of others. And this has effectively erased the distinction between mainstream politicians and those advocating separation from Indian Union. There have been curbs placed on the press. Also, the high-speed internet has been made unavailable to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and this has made life and work difficult for businessmen, for job seekers, and especially for students. Though there has been some dip in the militancy in the Jammu and Kashmir, but cross-border infiltration has definitely gone down after the events of August 2019. But there is a feeling that the continuation of political vacuum in Jammu and Kashmir can be damaging, both for Jammu and Kashmir and also for India. So the central government must expedite the restoration of political process in Jammu and Kashmir and allow the people of J&K to elect their representatives through a free and fair election. One important concern for India vis-a-vis Jammu and Kashmir has always been the security. So India has for long fought terror, militancy and separatism in a benign way, in a very easygoing manner, where people's liberties were minimally disturbed even as the security forces took casualties. But this is now changing. And in 2019, especially with respect to Jammu and Kashmir, this policy was changed with limited curbs placed on the rights of the people. Due to the restrictions and curbs placed, there was curtailing of the flow of finances and thereby neutralizing the mobilization of stone throwing protest, which had become a regular occurrence in Jammu and Kashmir. Also, it has led to elimination of a large number of terrorists, and there has been a sharp reduction in the recruitment of local terrorists as per official sources. But still, the real challenge lies in the field of governance and for reviving political activity in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. Now let us see what is Article 370, which has been the bone of contention. So Article 370 of the Indian Constitution was a temporary provision which granted special autonomous status to Jammu and Kashmir, and it was placed under Part 21 of the Constitution, which deals with temporary, transitional and special provisions. So this we should remember, Part 21 and Article 370, which provided special status to Jammu and Kashmir, and all the provisions of the Constitution which are applicable to other states were not applicable to J&K because of the presence of Article 370, which granted Jammu and Kashmir a special autonomous status. For instance, till 1965, Jammu and Kashmir had a Sadr-e-Riyasat, position for governor, and Prime Minister in place of Chief Minister. But after 1965, this was changed. So Jammu and Kashmir became a part of India through an instrument of accession, which was signed by the then Dogra ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, and the Government of India. And this was signed in 1949. And while signing this instrument of accession to Indian Union, Maharaja Hari Singh negotiated the state's political relationship with India, which led to the inclusion of Article 370 in the Constitution. And Article 370 provided that except for defense, foreign affairs, finance and communications, the Indian Parliament would need the state government's concurrence for applying all other laws. Thus, the state's residents live under a separate set of laws, including those related to citizenship, ownership of property and fundamental rights as compared to other Indians. As a result of this provision, Indian citizens from other states could not purchase land or property in Jammu and Kashmir. So all this has changed with the abrogation of Article 370. And here it is important to note that Article 370 provided for defense, foreign affairs, finance and communications. These subjects were under the Indian Union, and for rest of the subjects, the Indian Parliament could make laws only with the concurrence of the state government. Another important article in this context is Article 35A, and it was introduced by Presidential Order of 1954, and it empowers the J&K legislature to define a permanent resident of the state and to provide special rights and privileges to those permanent residents. This has also been abrogated. So Article 35A is unique in the sense that it does not appear in the main body of the Constitution, and in the Constitution main body, Article 35 is immediately followed by Article 36. There is no Article 35A in the main body of the Constitution. It is placed in the Appendix 1. And Article 35A empowers the J&K legislature to define the state's permanent residents and their special rights and privileges. Now both Article 370 and Article 35A are gone. So with this background, now let us look at the key points of the editorial. The editorial says that it has been a year since Parliament changed the constitutional status of Jammu and Kashmir, effectively nullifying Article 370 and reorganizing the state into two separate UTs of J&K and of Ladakh. There has been widespread support for integrating Kashmir with the rest of India, constitutionally and legally, and this was made possible by diluting Article 370. Though there have been questions raised about the process followed to achieve it and also on the urgent need for extending outreach to the Kashmiri people who have felt alienated by the way it has been done. And after a year of this dramatic change in the status of Jammu and Kashmir, there is little doubt that the entire constitutional, legal and administrative rejig of J&K has cemented the control of the Indian state over Jammu and Kashmir. It has armed the Indian security forces with greater room to tackle Pakistan-sponsored terrorism and crack down on violence. The futility of the Azadi slogan of those who harbour ambitions of secession from the Indian Union. Now it must be clear to everybody that Jammu and Kashmir was and is an integral part of the Indian Union. But at the same time, editorial points out that certain challenges remain, and the most important challenge is of integrating Kashmiris with the Indian Union. There has been long detention of the mainstream political leaders, the curtailment of civil liberties, including mobility and connectivity, and other restrictions on political activity, which has left the common Kashmiri alienated, and this needs to be addressed on an urgent basis. And the dilution of statehood has been met with hostility, especially in the Kashmir Valley. There has been tremendous disruption to the everyday lives of people, first with the revocation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir, and it was followed by the COVID-19 induced lockdown. So there has been no respite for the people in the Jammu and Kashmir. Finally, the editorial makes some suggestions that what should be done by the government. So the government must note that there are people who have grievances against the steps taken by the government vis-a-vis Article 370, and it should not brush aside the democratic dissent of the citizens, even as it battles violence in the valley. And the prime responsibility of the central government should be to restore democracy fully in Jammu and Kashmir. And this can be done by, first of all, removing the restrictions on connectivity, releasing the detained leaders, initiating a political dialogue, making security forces more accountable for any case of excesses, and finally restoring statehood to Jammu and Kashmir while keeping Ladakh as a separate unit. And the editorial says that taking these steps will be the best way to restart the political process in Jammu and Kashmir, because the aim for the central government after removing the special status of Jammu and Kashmir should be to win over the hearts and minds of the Kashmiris. And here we should remember what Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the former Prime Minister of India, had said about Kashmir issue, that Kashmir issue can be resolved by following an approach which gives weightage to Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat and Kashmiriyat. So the central government should follow these wise words of late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Jamhuriyat means democratic process. So this was all in the key points of the editorial. Now let us look at what kind of questions can be asked in prelims and mains. So in prelims, the question can be asked directly about Article 370. So we should be clear about Article 370 and in which part of the Constitution it was placed. So it was placed in Part 21 of the Constitution. And Article 35A, which is not placed in the main body of the Constitution, but it is placed in Appendix 1. And this has not been introduced in the Constitution through an amendment under Article 368, but through a presidential order in 1954. This is also an important fact that we should remember, and a question can be asked on this. A question can also be asked on the special status which was earlier given to Jammu and Kashmir, and how many other states of India enjoy special status and under which articles. So this we should also be knowing. Then a question can be asked on the instrument of accession through which Jammu and Kashmir became an integral part of India, and when was it signed. Another question in prelims can be on the Constitution. So we should be clear about the articles, parts and schedules which were there when the constitution was adopted on 26 January 1950. So originally there were 395 articles, 22 parts and 8 schedules. Now the schedules are 12 in number, parts are 25 in number, and the articles are around 448. But this keeps changing, so we should be updated about this. In mains, the question can be basically on evaluation of revocation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir and what are the benefits that have come out of it and what are the negatives of it. So we should be having points on both sides. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. We'll see you next time with another editorial. Thank you.